You guys, I give up. I'm granting that the Bible is true and real. Wait, what, HG? I mean, your channel is about critiquing the Bible, pointing out its incongruencies and irreconcilable passages. You talk about how the Bible causes religious trauma. So, I mean, what are you talking about? Okay, you got me. I don't think the Bible is true theologically because I don't believe this Christian God exists. But for the sake of this video, I'm granting it's true. You'll see why. So come along. Hi, everyone. I'm H.G.Roberts, deconverted Christian after 25 years and author of On Monsters and Phantoms. And here we talk about religious trauma and how the Bible itself ties us up in knots, leads to confusion, anxiety, fear, doubt, depression, emotional oblivion, mental paralysis, and ultimately, of course, trauma. I have a master's degree in mass communication, so I'm specifically interested in the messages the Bible communicates to us today, the cognitive filters in our minds that we use to interpret those messages, and finally, the harmful impact those messages have on our self and worldview. So I recently watched this video from Paulogia called "Why Am I So Bad at Resurrection Math?" featuring Dr. Brian Blaze. I've linked to it below. In Paulogia's own words, here's what that video is about, and I'm just quoting from his site. Is the maximal data case for the resurrection of Jesus a sophisticated historical argument, or just "for the Bible tells me so" with extra steps? When apologist Than Christopoulos accused YouTuber Paulogia of mathematical malpractice for his skepticism, Paulogia enlisted physicist and statistical inference expert Dr. Brian Blaze to respond. This video features Dr. Blaze's detailed breakdown of the debate where he corrects the Bayesian equations, reframes the data, and argues that the apologist's own math reveals a conclusion baked in from the start, turning a theological debate into a fascinating lesson on logic and probability. Just for fun, let's listen to a very short clip to give you the context and flavor of the video. It gets pretty deep.
We now assess how expected this testimony is under each hypothesis. We'll say 0.9. This is very expected if Jesus rose bodily and appeared to his followers. Very briefly, this is what we would expect to see given the resurrection. How likely is it that the same evidence would arise under an alternative hypothesis, e.g. hallucinations, lies, metaphors? Much lower. Let's say 0.0001, given that multimodal group hallucinations are not known to occur, and coordinated falsehoods or symbolic reinterpretations this early face severe explanatory problems. So we calculate the likelihood ratio. Step 3, multiply by the prior odds. Start with Bayes' odds form. Insert the numbers. Step 4, convert to posterior probability. Step 5, interpret the result.
Paulogia's video may not be your cup of tea, and that's cool, but hang in there with me. I'm going somewhere with this. I am not a statistician, mathematician, theologian, or philosopher, just an observer of the human condition, someone who's gone through hell because of religious trauma, and I'm a student of media messages who has something to say about all this proving the Bible business. Real quick, I'm assuming many of you already know about and subscribe to Paulogia's channel. If you don't, make sure you do right after this. He is a titan in this space and puts forth very rational arguments, mostly against the resurrection, but he supports every argument with scholarship, facts, and reason. Of course, he's made apologist enemies, but what I think is the most important thing here is that apologists, once they get past all the ad hominems they hurl at him, are forced to engage and contend with his arguments because, man, can Paulogia burn down a strong man with the best of them. Rationality Rules is another great channel if you're into attacking Christianity or really any arguments and claims with logic and reason. And I appreciate Brandon at Mindshift's recent shout out to my channel. He's another great thinker in this space. If you enjoy and benefit from my content, go check these guys out if you haven't already. You will learn so much from them. Okay, here's what struck me about watching Paulogia's video. Apologists are hell-bent on proving the Bible true at any cost, and they'll use whatever methods, flawed as they may be, and twisted rhetorical devices to do so. Now, of course, I think their arguments are weak and they can't overcome the blatant contradictions and incongruencies and irreconcilable aspects of Scripture, but they go down swinging to defend what I and many of you would call an abusive God. I give them some credit and points for trying, though. I mean, I once did what they do, so I get where they're coming from and why they construct all the hills they choose to die on. Hell is their punishment if they don't, and heaven is their reward if they do. And Dan McClellan rightfully points out their identity politics depend on what they believe and espouse as truth, and vice versa. Yet, as much as I support Paulogia and am on his side, and as much as I'd want him next to me in a debate, as much as we're on the same team, I will do what Paulogia and pretty much any other atheist or agnostic won't. I'll grant that apologists like Than Christopoulos, Michael Jones, William Lane Craig, Alan Parr, Gavin Ortlund, Frank Turek, Greg Kokel, and Wes Huff have proven the Bible true. You did it, guys. Have your day in the sun. I'll grant for this video that you'll win every debate when making your case supporting the Bible's veracity. Sorry, Matt Dillhunty and Alex O'Connor, but play along. You apologists have proven that the Kalam cosmological argument, the moral, ontological, fine-tuning, teleological, and every other argument for your God of Christianity, not just general theism, is foolproof. Than, your astute probability analysis and Bayesian reasoning has proven the Bible to be true. Well done. Atheists said it couldn't be done.
The point is, I intend to undertake this, and I'll do it with or without you. So if you're scared, if you haven't got the stomach for this, let's get it out right now. And I'll go on my own. If not, you can get on board and we can get to work. Now, what's it gonna be?
All right, damn it, I'm in.
Yahweh exists, the Trinity is real, Jesus is alive. Awesome. So, now what? Where do we go from here? Congratulations, this holy book filled with gobs of immoral atrocities, oppressive mandates, genocidal commands, confusing and divisive rhetoric, and trauma-inducing stories, passages, and threats is now living and active. It is sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to dividing soul and spirit of joints and marrow, and able to discern the thoughts and intentions of the heart. Yea, it's all real. And let's, for the sake of this argument, agree that everyone interprets it the same way and all denominational rifts are resolved. Let's pretend that the Bible actually becomes the unifying force it claims to be. Oh, I guess now's a good time to ask this. Than, are you then the appointed gatekeeper of how to interpret and apply the truths the Bible supposedly claims? I mean, by what methods will you ensure that what you've proven true is universally understood and applied? Because again, we've already tried that. Remember though, just because you've proven it true, and I'm only granting that for the sake of this video, through, say, a probability analysis or some new pieces of archaeological evidence, that doesn't now make it good or useful. That doesn't reduce its harm. We've still got some major problems that, sadly, will never be overcome by you celebrating your victory in the streets, pasting the 10 Commandments in classrooms and courtrooms, and reinstituting public government-sponsored corporate prayer. We've been here already as a culture, and billions of people already consider the Bible true. So what victory have you actually won? Do you think that just because you've proven the Bible true means it will cease to cause division, strife, oppression, and religious trauma? It won't. Do you know why? Because it already has, precisely because many people throughout history believed it to be true. I personally suffered from religious trauma because I believe the Bible to be true, every word of it. And to be fair, I do seriously grant that Christianity in the Bible has given societies some positive institutions. I am on the record repeatedly saying that. I just wish apologists would be fair back toward me and grant that the Bible has done major damage to the world and to individuals. If you want to claim that the Bible and Christianity brought an end to chattel slavery in the U.S., then please also claim that it regulated and endorsed chattel slavery and perpetuated that institution for millennia. If you want to claim that the Bible and Christianity is responsible for raising a woman's status and granting all women equal rights in society, then please also admit that they're responsible for the historical subjugation of women. Should we just now abolish the First Amendment through this victory? And I could go on and on. I have always been after, on this channel, the ability to balance the conversation and just have an honest conversation that includes the benefits and the harms of Christianity. Proving the Bible true invites a simple problem. Like I said, I and many of my atheist and agnostic skeptical colleagues in this space have already believed the Bible is true. We could prove it. We studied it. We defended it. We prayed. We worshiped. We repented. We believed. We taught the Bible. We shared the gospel message to others. If you know my friend Durante Lamar, then you know we've even preached it. I led a music ministry for many years and wrote songs about the glory of God and what it means to be saved. We bathed in the truth and the light of the Bible's message. We were once right where you apologists, theists, and pastors are, until we rejected the Bible. In a weird sort of way, you're just preaching to the choir. We know your arguments, we know your tactics, and we know your tricks. We've employed them ourselves, sadly. We've been on your side. We've ministered. We've evangelized. The difference is not that we became deceived, because if that were true, you apologists and theists and pastors would have a lot of explaining to do. Not us. You'd have a lot to ask your God about, like how and why he would let that happen if his desire is that none should perish. And don't quote Hebrews or 2 Peter at me. Those verses don't do the work you think they do, and leave the free will defense alone. That makes no sense either. You'd have to contend with why this has happened to us, and you're not allowed to fall back on the tired and overused "you were never Christians to begin with" excuse. You're telling on yourselves when you use that excuse, and it's only a rationalization you use to convince yourself that apostasy could never happen to you. I get it. We all said the same thing to other Christians who deconverted before we did. So put that away for good. This requires new thinking and a new strategy, if there even is one. Why can I say this with such confidence? Because I know I'm speaking for many, not all, of my colleagues in this space, went down swinging with prayer and petitions to God as we felt our faith slipping away. We begged God to show up, to bless us with wisdom and measures beyond what we had already experienced, because we needed an extra measure of wisdom to counteract the rising doubts that formed the more we examined the evidence. We needed it to seal the cracks of our skepticism, forming in our worldview, forming from a plain reading and study of the Bible, and actually permitting ourselves to critically examine it. We didn't hide our doubts. We laid them at the foot of the cross and pleaded with God to show us what we were missing. What had we gotten wrong? How were we blinded and deluded? We needed to be protected from the enemy's deception. I did all that through breathless anxiety and tears. Others did too. We put on the armor of God as best we knew how to combat what we, at the time, believed to be the fiery darts of the enemy. What we needed to fight against our flagging faith was the miraculous, the supernatural, and we didn't get it despite our prayers. So we had to lick our wounds and contend now with the impossible. A life without a God that we poured our lives into for decades, at least in my case, but we rebuilt slowly over time, and now that we look back over our shoulders, we see things for what they truly are. There never was the only thing we hoped and believed there was and would always be. I am an agnostic now because I see that the Bible is filled with contradictions, myths, and human-made rules. I'm an agnostic now because I see that the Bible is filled with human perspectives rather than divine truth. I am an agnostic now because I see that the Bible is filled with cultural assumptions, historical errors, and moral teachings that reflect the time it was written. I am an agnostic now because I see that the Bible is filled with echoes of human fear and hope, not the voice of a God. I'm agnostic now because my religious trauma nearly drove me to suicide. So by me saying you've worn me down and won me over to reclaim that the Bible is true does not mean I'll claim that the Bible is good, wholesome, perfect, loving, and wise. Guess what? By me claiming the Bible is true as you want me to, all that will do is put me right back into the lap of religious trauma, living on a razor's edge of suicide. And not just me, but millions others like me who also walked away because of their religious trauma. Your victory won't be one of progression, but rather oppression and regression. Is that what you really want? For those of us who have finally experienced the freedom from the bondage, harm, and fear of Christianity, you want to imprison us once again? Because imprisonment, power, and subjugation is what you'd gain from your hollow victory. You wouldn't get a morally superior world. Remember, Jesus came to divide and not bring peace. Those are his words. And if that is what you want, more division, more strife, more war, more trauma, then I really question your morals and ethics, though I shouldn't, because you're getting them from a book full of divine commands that repress and slaughter outsiders, people who aren't in your in-group. So please, apologists, start thinking about what your victory actually means. Start considering that by winning our nation back to Christianity, by proving that the Bible is true, you're going to enslave people to trauma, strife, discord, and dissonance. Besides, it's a fruitless exercise anyway, right? I mean, according to your book, the world is only going to get worse. More people will turn away from your faith. Only in heaven will you find the utopia you're searching for. And it's only during the past couple of decades are we starting to see reason and rationality take over. The nuns and the duns are having their say. We're witnessing another enlightenment, a renaissance of new thought and critique of an institution that, despite its benefits, has wrought major harm on cultures and individuals alike. If you want to win that back, apologists, please ask yourself why. I mean, I know why, because I fought for the same thing for 25 years, but the data is not in your favor, even if you believe the dogma is. I want to close with this. Here's what I see we atheists, agnostics, skeptics, secularists, and humanists have collectively established. I think of it as a pie chart. Collectively, we've evaluated and critiqued Christianity through archaeology, history, textual criticism, philosophy, science, and rationality. I know I probably missed some areas, and some areas may overlap. Your pie chart may look different than mine, or maybe you'd use a Venn diagram to better assess our current state, and that's okay. This is more of a thought experiment. I could name dozens of scholars and content creators who shine in any of those areas of the pie chart, who are making solid arguments. We've read their books and papers, we've engaged their content on YouTube, we've heard their lectures. Everyone's doing fine work, so keep it up. But notice there's a piece of the pie missing from this chart, and that's where I and others like me come in. We're filling that last little sliver with religious trauma. It may not be the biggest piece of the pie, it may not be the sexiest piece of the pie, but it's a necessary piece. Is it the final piece? Meaning, have we now evaluated Christianity from every conceivable angle? Maybe, but probably not. When we start evaluating Christianity with arguments based on and in religious trauma, we are raising what I believe are new and fresh arguments, at least in comparison to a lot of the other arguments that have been around much longer. We're giving theologians, pastors, and apologists a new type of interlocutor that's bringing to the table novel and unique evidence against Christianity. We're giving them a plausible polemic from which they can't retreat. We're laying new challenges at their door and forcing them to contend with arguments for which their apologetics have little to no answers. I know apologists are clever and shrewd, so I expect interesting rebuttals in time, and we'll see what they are and how much water they hold. I hope they don't continue to say that we're reading the Bible wrong, but let me catch myself here. I'm using the language of an aggressor, and my rhetoric of late has been, or at least has been trying to be, more congenial. I want to invite discussions to see if we can at least make some headway. What does that headway look like? It looks like Christians saying that though they believe it's true, maybe Christianity isn't for everybody. Maybe it shouldn't be practiced by everybody, because maybe it causes real harm for some, and we can't attribute that to Satan, even though we'd sure like to. There are other factors involved that we now recognize exist. If I can hear that in my lifetime, then I know our work has made a difference. But if Christians agree with me and do say that Christianity is harmful, I recognize they'd be violating the truth of their holy book. So what do you guys think? Will we hear that in our lifetime, say in the next 30 to 40 years? I mean, only time will tell. But with each video I and others like me put out, with each new subscriber, we're making progress. And for that, I thank each and every one of you. And finally, I may be wrong about this, but my assessment of all the online discord between apologists and atheists kind of boils down to this. Christians just keep trying to prove that they're right and atheists are wrong. Atheists are just trying to show Christians the flaws in their doctrine and thinking. Atheists and agnostics, at least most of us, claim no real position of rightness or wrongness, just a position of skepticism. You guys let me know what you think about that. That may not be how everybody sees it, and I realize I just swatted a hornet's nest, but I'm very curious in a meta-analysis of messages and counter-messages, how we interpret them, their impact, the channels through which those messages flow, etc. Like I said, I studied mass communication in graduate school, so I'm super interested in this stuff. Thanks for being here, everyone. If you want to support this channel, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share, comment, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss my next conversation starter. But a way to support the channel financially, since I don't have Patreons or sponsors, is to do what many others have done and purchase On Monsters and Phantoms. It's my memoir about severe religious trauma and deconversion from Christianity. And leave a review. It's a raw and honest look into the diabolically harmful mind games Christianity plays with us. The link to it on Amazon is below. I appreciate that. If you do buy it, let me know so I can publicly thank you in my next video. And thank you to Tim Morris, S2U, for purchasing my book. I am honored that you would do so. Get back in touch with me after reading it if you wish to leave a review that I can post on my website. So I try to put out a new video each Wednesday and Sunday, where we take a deep dive into what religious trauma is, how it forms, in whom it's most likely to form, and what we can do about it if it does form. If you'd like me to cover a specific topic, let me know in the comments. I've done that a few times now. And if you're new here and curious about religious trauma or think you may be suffering from it, I hope you're not, but explore the channel to see what other topics I've covered and what other resources are available to you. There are lots. So until next time, let's continue to catalyze a conversation together about religious trauma to let those who suffer from it know that there is hope, and to let those who dismiss it know that it's real.